Shot 7 times, still happy with life. Hello and welcome, my friends, to the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. This is episode 162, and you are in for a treat. This is the fourth episode of SEAL Week, the inaugural SEAL Week. We've been doing this all week long, the week of Veterans Day, to promote the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim, where all proceeds benefit the Navy SEAL Foundation, which goes to families of Navy SEALs who were either wounded or killed in action. This past January 2015, I did the swim. It's 3.1 miles across Tampa Bay. I'm doing it again January 17th, 2016. The goal is to raise $10,000, and you can help by donating to my link at helpwesswim.org. Helpwesswim.org. If this Air Force guy is going to jump into cold water, the least you can do is throw a little money at me, huh? But today we have Mr. Jay Redman. He was an active duty Navy SEAL, an officer, and he was shot 7 times by an enemy combatant, obviously, with a machine gun. He lived to tell about it, and his story is quite compelling. His attitude, his inspiration, his motivation. You will realize that you are not having a bad day after you hear what Jay has to say. Before Jay, the previous 3 episodes, we heard from Joel Lambert. He's on Lone Target. You can see him on TV, all Hollywood style, looking pretty. We also have Mr. Scott McEwen. He was on day 2 of SEAL Week. He is the author of American Sniper, the book and the movie about Chris Kyle, the deadliest sniper in American history. So you want to make sure and check those out. Yesterday we had on Dan O'Shea, U.S. Naval Academy graduate. You can see him quite often on TV as well, on the news. He's quite involved in the terrorist situation. He's a hostage expert, and he is a motivated American. All of these guys are the guys you want protecting us, defending us, carrying the banner to make sure that the right policies get introduced and put into action. But now, without further ado, let's dive in to Mr. Jay Redman's interview. Jason J. Redman, retired SEAL, pulled over on the side of the road just to talk to little old me, man. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
Wes, what's going on, man? It's just like back in the old days when I was a communicator. We'd have to stop and make our comms windows. You know, I'd be that guy that was busting out my SATCOM antenna or throwing 550 cord up into a tree so I could get my long wire up. This is what this is.
Yeah, I didn't have quite the career you did, but I did have to deploy a couple times with some big-ass Pelican cases and undo set up some satellites just to get you the weather, you know, and like, good grief. I'm like, come here, rookie. Hold this up and hold it with one hand, touch the doorknob, and, you know, don't look at me because I don't know. Something's happened. I need a connection.
Yeah. Lick that thumbtack on the wall. Oh, yeah, perfect comms.
A little better than my uncle calling us from the back of the room, say, come hold the rabbit ears. But I think I'm like 5 or 7 years older than you, so you may not have ever had rabbit ears. I don't know.
No, I did when I was young. I did. I remember the rabbit ears, so.
All right. Well, man, thanks for coming on and helping me with our SEAL Week, helping people helping me, Air Force guy, swim for the Navy SEAL Foundation and the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim. But you have an amazing story, and I wanted to have you on. For those that may not know it, and I've got some notes here as well, but could you give us a thumbnail sketch? And I know you're probably going to under-deliver on because of humility, and I'm going to sprinkle in some things I found about you online.
That's always a little scary.
Hey, Abraham Lincoln said, you can believe everything you read online. He did say that.
Oh, you know what? I thought I saw that. Didn't he say that at the end of the Gettysburg Address?
Right at the end, but they left it out until the internet caught up.
Well, you know, I had a very interesting career. I came in as a young kid. I was 17 when I joined the Navy before I even got out of high school. And as soon as I graduated, I headed off to boot camp as a young enlisted kid that wanted to be a SEAL, and found myself going through SEAL training at the age of 19, and learning what it is to be a leader, and kind of making mistakes along the way. Really, as a lot of us young knuckle draggers, you kind of get a little enamored probably with yourself as a warrior, and especially as a soft guy. I mean, some guys are beyond that, which is good for them. Most of us kind of get caught up in it, and I did as a young kid, and all the way up until I got commissioned as a young officer, and made some mistakes along the way. But through those mistakes, and through that hardening process, that forging process, I really came to understand what it is to be a good leader, and try and set the example, and try and really look out for the guys, especially in those combat situations, and carried that newfound attitude and that newfound knowledge and wisdom into Iraq with a pretty hardcore Iraq deployment during the Anbar Awakening, and found myself on the wrong end of a machine gun in the Anbar province of Iraq in September of 2007, and got myself all shot up. And that started a whole new journey of getting put back together, and also realizing that, you really can lead from any situation, including from a hospital bed. And that was a new glide path for me. And went down that road, kind of what I like to call the reforging. And basically through that started the process of me creating Wounded Wear, my nonprofit, and getting out and speaking to other people on overcoming adversity, which later turned into the book, The Trident, and then, of course, my speaking company, Soft Spoken, and now Wounded Wear, even expanding into the new Combat Wounded Coalition.
Is that all?
And I like to try and take care of my 3 kids every now and then.
There you go. Take mama out to dinner.
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Amen.
Hey, well, I think Donald Trump said that if he was in combat, he never would have been shot. I think he said that.
That guy's pretty amazing to me, some of the things he says. I mean, I got to applaud him for stirring the pot and forcing some of our political figures to address things that I think have become too politically correct to address. But I tell you what, some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth just makes me scratch my head, and it really shows his disassociation with the military. I mean, this statement he made the other day about President Bush that, President Bush, the country was not safer with President Bush. I can't agree with all the decisions he made, but, I definitely think the guy had the right ideas for national security, at least immediately leading after 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing turn of events, right? Been in office 8 months, and then boom, like, goodness gracious. Okay, let's shift gears.
But that wouldn't have happened. But that wouldn't have happened if Trump was there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, man, all right. Well, we're not talking about that today. So
I know, but it does come up every now and then. I just can't keep it in. So, look, I like to pull in stories from all of my guests, but especially those of you that are coming on for SEAL Week, and to make things that the average listener can relate to, because honestly, most of us have no idea what it takes to even become a SEAL and to certainly to serve as long as you did and in combat. And so I don't want people to listen to this and think, oh, this guy, Jay, he's some kind of superhuman. His stories, I can't really relate to it. I'm going to stop listening to this. And one of the things I like to pull out, if you can kind of relate for us, is towards goal setting. How did you know, A, that you wanted to be a SEAL? I mean, that's a big goal. And then how did you know you would achieve it? And did you ever have any doubts that maybe you wouldn't make it?
Well, first off, for anybody that wants to try and say, oh, yeah, I could never achieve that, I'm definitely I was an average guy with above average aspirations. Mm-hmm. I was not the captain of my football team. I wasn't Johnny's superstar athlete. I didn't come from, really, we were relatively poor family. I had a dream to become a SEAL. And I think the common theme with any SEAL is is that gene that says I will not quit. And I'll tell you what, that is unequivocally my greatest strength is tenacity, a tenacious mind, because there have been so many times in my life I've been in hard situations that, really it was that one trait that got me through. Probably somebody smarter than me would have got through it a lot easier, but I just battened down the hatches and drove forward. So anybody can do that. Did I have doubts? Yeah, I have plenty of doubts. I still have doubts to this day. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, everything that I'm doing from speaking to the people that disagree sometimes with what you're saying, to running a nonprofit organization, to the obstacles and adversity you encounter running a business, and, trying to motivate and inspire employees and volunteers. Life is about doubts. It's about managing, that little voice in our head that everybody has that says, oh, this is hard. You can't do this. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the resources. You don't have the talent. And the difference between people who find success and people who don't are the ones who manage to say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to you. I mean, I hear you, little voice, but I'm going to drive past it. And that is what got me through buds. That is what got me through my injuries. That is what got me through a failure point in my career where I almost listened to that little voice, and I almost left the Navy at my 13-year mark when I hit some hard points. Right. And obviously the hard points that I've hit as I've been growing my nonprofit over the last 5 years. Right.
Well, if you had listened, you wouldn't have been shot 7 times. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you should have listened.
Yeah, I've had some people bring that up, but everything in life, in my opinion, happens for a reason.
Right.
And let's just say hypothetically it really doesn't happen for a reason. You can learn something from it.
Right.
And I tell you what, I have learned so much out of that moment being shot. So much more about myself, what I'm capable of, what I can drive through. And I look back to that day so many times, and I tell myself, hey, man, you got through this. You can get through anything else. And I think anybody can learn from that because everybody encounters hard moments in their life.
Right.
So.
Well, and I won't read it here because you've probably been quoted many times, but I'm going to link to it and talk about it, before and after in the intro and outro to the interview. But I love the sign you put up in your hospital room, that basically said, don't come in here full of sorrow and pity for me. We're going to make stuff happen and bounce back. And I love that attitude. And it seems like, would you say being in the SEALs develop that attitude, or it kind of sounds like you had it from day one with that gene that I will not quit. So would you say it was always internal, or did being in the teams help foster that and help flourish?
I think both. I think I had it as a young man, just that raw, under a seed, and the SEAL teams watered it and grew it into something stronger, and adversity really grew it into something stronger. There are many people out there that when they face those hard moments in life, and it's under those moments of greatest stress that they quit. And there are others that in those moments of greatest stress, they get stronger and better for it. And that's why I tell anybody in those hard moments, you've got to drive forward, because there's no doubt the SEAL teams made me stronger and better. And that's why, the sign on the door, whatever anybody talks about, I say, hey, listen, I'm flattered. I definitely get recognized for it a lot. But the reality is, what I tell people is I just captured the voice of the Naval Special Warfare community, of the Special Operations community, the military community. These guys and gals dive forward past, grievous injuries, loss of limbs and burns and traumatic brain injuries, and they drive forward. I mean, and that sign captured that spirit.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like meeting the president? I mean, President Bush you met, right, in the Oval Office?
I did.
I've never been there. I mean, regardless of politics, it's got to be kind of humbling, huh?
It was surreal. There's only a couple. I am not a starstruck person. I normally am not, awed by different things that have occurred. I mean, I feel so fortunate and blessed. But there's two moments in my life that I have been speechless and were surreal. And the one was when I went to the White House and I got to meet President Bush with my family, and he invited us into the Oval Office. And there's just so much history and respect for that office. I mean, one of the most powerful positions in the world. And to be there and for him to take the time. I mean, he spent 35 minutes with my family.
Wow.
It was just fantastic. And just an amazing guy. I think a lot of people don't give him credit that's due, but he was a very charismatic guy, very cordial. The conversation was just great. He took the time really to learn about us and our family. And, we got into the weeds on Iraq and terrorism and everything that was going on. So,
right.
So it's pretty amazing.
So I want to go back a little bit, though, on the goal setting. We talked about it a little bit, but I had Joel Lambert on last week, and we talked about goal setting, and he talked about how, it's good to have the big goal, but, certainly going through buds and other challenges, but buds, a lot of people can relate to, they've seen it on TV at least. He said a lot of times it was just, get through this one chore, get through this one evolution, just make it to the next meal, so setting little micro goals to reach the bigger goal. So can you talk to us about that? I mean, do you have kind of the same approach in business now, that our listeners could get some benefit from?
Absolutely. I mean, Joel's dead on right. I mean, the SEAL training teaches you that. If you look further down the road to say, wow, I want to graduate and be a SEAL, at the beginning of the training, that goal seems insurmountable because there's so much pain and adversity and hardship between the moment of now and that moment of graduation. So you learn to just take things one step at a time, and you get through those hard points, and then you find a spot to breathe. And I truly believe business is the same way. And let me tell you something. I am learning every day in business. It's a whole different world. It is a whole different vocabulary. And sometimes I get it right, and boy, sometimes have I messed it up. But when I mess it up, those are those moments that I take a step back and I do like what we do in the military. I have a little after action report, and I'm like, okay, boy, what can I do better next time? What can I fix? And what can I repair? And how do we drive forward past this next point? And all of that is working towards that end state, that end goal. My goal with our organization is to create an organization that has national reach, that is making a national impact with our wounded warriors. And there's a lot of small goals that are happening all along the way. So I would definitely say that's the case, and speaking is no different.
So I, going through the Air Force Academy, I've never been one, even when I did this swim this past January, I didn't want to know every single thing, right? I said, okay, I'm going to go to school there and I will graduate. I'm going to jump in that water, and I've never been on an open water swim, but I said, I'm going to jump in that water and I'm going to swim the other side. It may take an hour, it may take 10 hours. I don't know. I've never done it, but I will not quit. How much, like going through buds and the SEALs, did you know every single little thing that would happen, like as you prepared, or did you just kind of roughly know, okay, there's going to be a lot of cold, miserable days, and I'm just going to jump in and not quit? How much plan? I see a lot of people, I think they over plan. So I'm trying to just get to, how much of this, in business and in the team, certainly in business for our people listening, how much should they plan, like every little nuance versus plot the direction and go?
I don't think they should plan every little nuance, and it's kind of an interesting. I've had a bell curve approach to this in the business world, and I'll even take a step back. I'll apply it from buds and then business. So I almost think you have to be very careful of trying to create these midpoint, every detail lined out. Because if they really can set you up for unrealistic expectations. Hey, I'm going to hit every little wicket. And, a lot of times in training and in combat, things did not go according to the plan. And that's the number one lesson they're trying to teach you when you go through SEAL training, a lot of military training. And I definitely think back to a point when we were going through Hell Week. I had set a goal for myself that, okay, if you make it to the sunrise on Wednesday morning, it's all downhill. And I had heard some guys talk about that. So in my mind, Wednesday morning, and I had so created this idea in my head that it was going to be easy after Wednesday morning, and it wasn't. I will say my hardest night was on Thursday night of Hell Week, and because I have created this false idea in my mind, this measure point, it almost ended me. I mean, there were several times on Thursday night I was like, geez, what is the deal? Why is this still hard? So now I'll fast forward into business. In the beginning, I just said, this is where I want to go. And obviously, a lot of different people have different ideas. And I had people around me that would say, oh, you've got to have, this 100-page business plan, and everything you do should be mapped out. And I started to go down that road, trying to figure that out, working with my board to do that. And recently I met a very, very, very successful businessman. And he said, hey, I want you to send me your business plan. So I did. It wasn't even finished, this 100-page document. And he said, here, let me send you one of mine, and I want you to duplicate what I've done. And his plan was about 10 pages. And it didn't get down into the weeds on every detail. It basically hit the large muscle movements of what he wanted to achieve in this business he was setting up. And he said, now write down what you want to achieve in your business and duplicate this. Because as long as you have, in my opinion, that path and that plan, and you have those hard muscle movements set out, those little details, they're going to change as you go along, depending on what resources you have, on, what the culture, climate, whatever you have going on at that moment, those things may change, and you're going to have to adapt in there. But if you set the big parts, then you're going to make it. No different for me with Hell Week. My goal should have been, okay, I want to make it through Hell Week. If I need to get down into, I got to get past this evolution, instead of creating that halfway point of Wednesday morning.
Right. Well, now I want to contradict myself, because that's what I do. I'm just one hot mess.
You're an Air Force guy. Come on.
I know. We're confused, man. I mean, my worst challenge was, we ran out of batteries for the remote control. I mean, that was, dude, I should get like hazardous duty pay for that. I got to call my counselor.
You should.
So, okay. So here I go contradicting myself, because even though you may not have planned every single thing, what people may not realize is that every little bit of training that you had to endure going through the SEALs, just through BUDS and then through the eventual training and joining the teams, they were building that muscle memory. What do you call it? The hard muscle movements, right? Even, holding a log over your head, running with a boat over your head, burying a boat in the sand, right? Getting wet and sandy. All those things were building you up, so you had the tenacity, the ability, the mental, fortitude to handle the adversity. And I think that's where entrepreneurs fail. They see somebody with their get rich quick, right? Just get a YouTube channel, join this webinar, and I will show you how to do a podcast, and you too can earn $1 million. And they think it's just like flip a switch, do one thing, make money. It's so easy, right? So don't you think, though? I mean, all of the things that maybe you didn't understand while you were going through that initial training was really, there was a science to the madness that made you able to look at the big goal and just know that you were equipped to handle any small adversity, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's no doubt that's what I think any military training is trying to teaching you, and obviously special operations training and SEAL training takes that to the absolute highest level. But it translates in life. And that's why I definitely say, if you were to ask me what's the secret to success, if you could sum up success in one word, I would say overcome.
Okay.
Because for me, that is the essential element. I'm not some genius leader. I am not definitely some genius businessman in any way whatsoever. And I'm sure people listening to this call will be nodding their head going, man, that's so true. But what I am is the ability that when things get hard, I will knuckle down and keep driving forward, and I will find a way to the other side.
Right.
And I will try and motivate and inspire the people around me to come with me.
Right.
And I think that's where people find success. That's where entrepreneurs are going to find success, because a business is hard. Making it in this world is hard. I mean, everybody's, all trying to achieve something, and you're competing with all these distractions, all this technology. Everybody's competing for, roughly the same pool of dollars and the same amount of attention. So, there are going to be a lot of failures before you find those successes. And it's just continuing to drive forward and plug away. And I think that is what makes the difference, and that's where people will find success.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I've had servers go down. I've had websites get hacked. I've had key employees leave, take clients with them, take intellectual property with them. Big sales not come through, big clients not renew, money I was counting on, money I was hoping for. Like I say, you can't climb a smooth mountain, right? You need some peaks and valleys and some cracks and ledges to grab hold and sometimes just hold on, huh?
Yep, absolutely, because that's the real life. And, and it is riding, it is navigating those peaks and valleys and not having unrealistic expectations, because you nailed it. You're going to have all those things. I've had all those things. Right. And, for me, definitely, it was just driving forward and saying, okay, that's a bummer that didn't happen. It's a bummer that we lost somebody critical. It's a bummer that this relationship, went south. It's a bummer that we didn't bring in this money. Whatever it is, it's like, okay, so where do we go from here? How do we continue to move down towards our end state? Those goals that are, the biggest ones we set out to achieve, and then what's the shorter term goal to move forward to achieve that long term goal? Right.
So how do you make that transition from elite special forces, special operator, to now wounded warrior to now entrepreneur? Was it a big shift? Was it hard? Did it just become obvious? Hey, I got to get out there and tell my story, can continue to contribute. I mean, how did that happen?
The easiest thing, I think the most black and white thing, I'm no longer allowed to kill people. They really frown on that. Yeah. In the civilian world. People get really upset at that.
Well, some people need some killing, but, I might ruffle some feathers if I say that. So I won't identify who.
Where's Donald Trump when I need him? He'd be right next to me going, absolutely. Do you know how many times I wanted to kill people? But, no, for me, it's been a transition. There is I'll tell you, I think the biggest thing I've come to find in my transition is in the military, we're a very structured environment. And even within the SEAL teams, we're somewhat structured, and I'd say the SEAL teams are probably the least structured unit in the military. And I'm used to working with people that you can say, hey, this is what we want to achieve. I want you to go get E. Yep. And you don't have to say, but I need you to go A to B to C to D to get to E. Yep. And in the civilian world, those people that operate that way are a smaller commodity. So if you're hoping to become an entrepreneur or you're hoping to become a leader in the civilian world, my advice to you is be that guy that when somebody says, I need you to get to E, you don't need minute directions on how to get step by step by step by step by step. Because if you can be the guy who can get to E and go back to your boss and say, hey, I achieved this and this is how I did it,
right,
you're going to be invaluable to the organization. Because, you spend a lot of time and resources when you continue to have to go back and say, okay, well, listen, this is how you go from A to B. And, this is how you get to that midpoint between A and B. And now this is how you go to B to C. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things I've come to learn on the civilian side. There's a lot more time spent making sure that you line out how these processes and procedures work. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've come to learn and I'm, figuring out on a constant basis. And then the second thing, even in the military, relationships are a huge thing, but they are night and day, even bigger in the civilian world. Mm-hmm. And I think in the military, I came from a task-oriented world. We had a mission. We had things that we had to go conduct. And, we had some guys who were super surly guys, but they were the guy you wanted next to you in a gunfight. And you tolerated their surliness because you were like, that guy's great at what he does. In the civilian world, it really doesn't work that way. And I think that's become something I'm learning. I've got to become much better at how I build these relationships and take the time to nurture and build them and recognize everybody from, in my case, sponsors and donors and volunteers. That sometimes you think that you're doing a good job recognizing it because you're accomplishing that task, that end state, but in the reality, they don't see it. So those are some of the lessons I'm definitely continuing to learn and I've learned along the way.
Yeah, amen. I'm glad you brought that up. I was just talking to my wife this morning about this. I mean, when I got my first sales management job in 1999, I knew it was going to be a struggle. Because I was a high achiever, right? Say in the Air Force, I was a fast burner. I was in the job for a year. I was top 2% of sales, and they gave me a management job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with people less motivated than me? Like, I can't stand being around them. Like you just said, a great example. What do you mean I got to show you A to B? Good grief, I'm already on M. And I just said E, but never mind. Just get out of my face. It's been hard, and I still struggle with that. It's like, is there anybody out there I can hire that is self-motivated, that will read a book on their own time? Like, hello, there's Google, figure it out, but it happens. Most people aren't like that. I'm glad you brought that up.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I want to put out. I mean, I don't want to ever look down on somebody and say, hey, man, because you're not this individual that figures things out on your own. I mean, there's a lot of incredible people that are very good at the skill sets that they do. But, yeah, I definitely want to go back that if you want to become irreplaceable in your company and move up into positions of higher leadership and authority and excel, be that guy who figures it out and exceeds beyond what your leadership is asking for. Because I'm telling you, that person is absolutely invaluable.
Yep. Amen. Well, man, I know you were pulled over on the side of the road, so I will let you get on to your talk, but I want to make sure we mention the various things you're working on. You had mentioned soft-spoken, right, and that's SOF. Spoken, so that's an acronym, right, for the special operations?
So soft-spoken, I mean, I'd love to claim that I thought of that name on my own, but, I'm not smart enough for that. Let's be real. The reality, I had an attorney friend who decided to come up with a business he wanted to call Soft Counsel, and he said, oh, well, you're getting into speaking, soft-spoken would be a great name, and I said, man, you're right, I love it. Not just the alliteration of it, but soft is supposed to be the quiet professionals, the guys who get out there and do the elite things, but try and do it quietly. So I love the name Soft Spoken. And the speaking company's done very well. I get out and I speak to everything from schools to law enforcement to churches to anything from Fortune 100 all the way to Fortune 500 companies. Right. And it's been very well received. I tailor my message, of course, to that presentation, but the common theme across the board is to overcome.
Right. That's awesome. And so you've also got a book out now, right? The Trident, The Forging and Reforging of a Navy SEAL Leader.
I do. Just a very humble account of my life from that young kid that came into the SEAL teams and a little enamored of himself and kind of fell on my sword, and then, picked myself up and learned how to drive forward and overcome and lead. And then, of course, being severely wounded and having to overcome that. So it's been a great journey with the book, and been very, very humbled to have it supported by the SEAL community. And even last year it was selected as one of 5 books for the official Navy reading list. So very
Nice.
humbled for that.
Yeah, I got 2 books at home, and one of them's not even colored in.
Well, the Trident was originally supposed to be a pop-up, but the publishing house was like, come on, we need a little more than that.
Nice. And then I want to end with this, and I'm going to link to your Wikipedia page. It's kind of awesome. And it ties into your Wounded Wear, which is now under the umbrella of combatwoundedcoalition.org. And everything will be linked to as well in the show notes from this. But I love your story of how you'd be out and about or at the gym, and people would ask if you were in an accident or something, never assuming your wounds were from combat. And you got this shirt that said, "Stop staring. I got shot by a machine gun. It would have killed you." So I love that. And I love supporting everything that you're working on. And I appreciate you supporting this Air Force dude trying to swim again. But it all goes back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And, man, just thanks for taking the time, pulling off on the side of the road to speak with me.
Wes, man, it's great. I appreciate what you're doing, trying to support our community, and also trying to spread that message of leadership and the overcome spirit. I think we need it. I think this nation is losing leaders. I think we're losing conviction. And I think we need more out there. So for those of you out there that, aspire to be a leader, now's the time.
Yep. Amen, my brother. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Mr. Jason Jay Redman. Safe travels, my friend.
Thanks, Wes.
What a modest dude, huh? A great story. Shot 7 times. He's out there writing books, speaking, encouraging us as Americans to find our spine again, right? Get that backbone. We're losing leaders and conviction, as he said there at the end. And it doesn't have to be that way. But it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with individuals. It starts with being excellent at home, being excellent in the workplace, being excellent with your customers and your prospects, being excellent in church, being excellent in your exercise routine. Just be excellent. Get after it. It doesn't mean you're perfect, but it means you're giving a perfect effort, giving all that you can. I think there's too many people looking for shortcuts. I see it all the time in business. People looking for that easy button, thinking there's some magic webinar, some magic thing they need to do. Just start a podcast, just start a YouTube channel, just do this, just do that. And it's not that simple. You got to get after it. Anything worth doing is hard. It takes effort. Why do we revere these Navy SEALs? Because they went through such a hard program, that 70, 80, 90% people will drop out in the various classes. So we admire these people because of the struggle that they voluntarily took on and overcame. And then Jay, he, in a way, he volunteered to be shot, right? He volunteered to put himself in harm's way. So, of course, he didn't want it to happen, but he has accepted it. And it is his life, and he's making the best of it to help all of us make the best of our lives, okay? So, and again, the whole reason I'm doing this SEAL Week on the Sales Podcast is to raise money for the swim. Please donate at helpwestswim.org. It's for the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim. All the money goes to Navy SEAL Foundation to help the families of Navy SEALs that have been wounded or killed in action. So please leave a comment, share this podcast with others that need maybe a swift kick in the rear, a little pick-me-up, because I don't know how better to do that than to bring on, introduce guys like Jay Redman to them. So, again, thanks for listening. HelpWestSwim.org. Please donate. And as always, remember to sell different.